Hello guys, Evans here and welcome to this video. So in this video, I'll be looking at the Information Technology 9626 paper 2 from the May-June 2019 series, and we will be doing a section on databases. Okay, so without wasting much of our time, let's go straight into what we're supposed to cover. Um, so the database section started after step number 14, and so just zoom in a little bit. So employees in El Mau who work with tourists have to be registered. So the types of venue that needs to be registered or that needs to register are hotels, restaurants, and ski schools. The data is held in two data files which are stored in different formats. Okay, so all reports must fit on a single page portrait when printed on A4 paper with at least 12 points high. So all files produced must be of a professional standard. And so guys, this is very important. Um, just this part here, let me just highlight it perhaps. This is very important. Okay, you need to make sure that you set your pages to F4. Your font sizes for all the reports must be 12 points high, and your orientation must be portrait. Okay, so you need to take note of that. Okay, the client has decided that all database field names must be short. Again, this is important: short, meaningful, consistent in style, and contain no spaces or underscores. Again, this is very important. Usually, when you deal with databases, they will give you pre-information, so to say, which you must work with in your database. If you, for example, skip this part that I've highlighted and you don't, pay attention to read, and you just go straight into step 15 and you start to do your own stuff, you realize that, of course, you may be able to do one or two things. You may even go a bit far, but you may be doing the wrong thing. For example, if you're not having consistent spaces, there you lose some marks. Your names are ambiguous, you lose some marks, and so on. Okay, so it's very important that you capitalize on that. So let's go straight into what we're supposed to do. So step 15, using a suitable software, open and examine the data in the files. The first one is employee 1 and the other one employee 2. So let's examine the data in these two files. So in here, and it's this one. So we'll just double click on it. And this one, the other one, I'll open it with the other one, since it's a text document, I'll still open it. Let's just double click on it. You can tell it's a text document from there, but you can see some sort of structure that is, there. I can see a bit of some columns, although they are spread all over the screen. But the best application to open this one in is with a spreadsheet package. So perhaps what you can do is, or if you want, you can just highlight everything here, copy it, and then go to a blank spreadsheet. Just have a blank spreadsheet and paste it there, and your data will be gotten like so. Alternatively, you can go to browse, open, and then look for the file and just change the file type, I think here, to all files, and then look for the file in question. So let's see, it should be in this one, and tutorials, let's see, 2019, and let's go SIT June paper 2. That too many folders, and your file will be this one. And again, you basically going through the normal stuff as if you are opening a text file into your database application. My data has headers, and there I don't know whether they're separated by tabs or what, but to me it looks perfect as it is. Okay, so I'll just go next and I'll go finish. This is a very tough process to get here. Um, this is why I was just saying that the best option is basically just you copy this and paste it in there. It will be different if this was you are opening it with Access, but since you're opening with Excel, you can go ahead and copy and paste that. But otherwise, if you want just to get the data, there are multiple ways of getting the data into a spreadsheet. Okay, so in our case, we have two files. Let's just close one. We should have two files, this one, and we should have this one. Okay, so I'm going just to expand these fields so that the column names are fully visible, and also here so the data is fully visible, just like that. Okay, and the question that we've been told, or rather the instruction we've been given, is to examine these files. So students often ask me that when they ask you that examine a file, what are you basically looking for in that file for you to say you're examining that file? Okay, so basically, if you're talking about databases, there are quite a number of things that you can look out for when you're creating a database. I'll give you an example. Things like data types, okay, things like field sizes, things field names and metadata. So the metadata could be like where you identify which fields would be like primary, which fields could be things like foreign key or primary key, composite key, and so on. So you are basically looking out for those things. How is the layout of this document? Okay. Do we have consistent spacings, consistent names, meaningful names? Okay. How is the data in this in each column? You are looking at all these things. Okay. You are basically searching for compatibility before you can start to work on a file. For example, sometimes you may find that a column may have multiple data in it, and that may disturb you when you come to do normalization. If a column has got multiple data in it, which can be treated as independent data, but yet it is grouped in one column instead of multiple columns, then that is going to be very difficult for you to perform normalization on that table. So you're looking out for those things before you can actually say this table or this data is fit for me to use it to perform data manipulation or to perform normalization or whatever you want to do with the data. Okay, so that's what you're doing. So in this case, we've been told to examine these two files, and we first of all we can start by looking at the column names. Okay, so notice that the column names, we have got forename, surname, age, job, and so on. And notice also the column names in this one. So let me just bring this one down like this and perhaps put it just on top of this one. Since we're examining the column names, notice the column names that we have. For the first one, we have got surname and then forename. But notice this one on top, we've got forename and then surname. So automatically you are seeing something here that there is inconsistency in terms of column layout. Okay, so this may fail an integrity test because somebody like Sarah Kogler Sarah may become the surname if we merge these two files, and Kogler may become the forename, and the names will be switched like that, and that will be an issue. So you're looking out for things like that. Notice column C also. It has got the column name as date of birth, and in the other one, the column name is age. So again, and then the data there is integer in column C, and in this one, the data seems to be date. And so you're looking at all these incompatibilities that are existing between your files. You go to the other columns, I don't notice any change or any difference. All the column names are okay. But again, if you compare what they have told you that your file names must be short or your column names must be short, there must be no spaces. You will see a lot of spaces between the field names in this case, okay? And also notice there is space between the column heading and column 2, and this space again can be an issue if you are to merge these files. Let's say you just copied the first file, employee one, and you just copied it and pasted it into employee two, you will notice that your database will have this blank record, and you don't want that to happen in your database. What's a blank record supposed to show? Okay, because if there's supposed to be something blank, then it's supposed to come at the end of the database, or the end of the sheet, which shows that you are ready to append a new record. Okay, so this is very important, guys. I'm going to take just some time here, just to make sure that you guys understand these concepts. And I'll try my best to explain databases in simpler terms as possible. This was a pain for most students in the exam, this paper. I got a lot of complaints from students around the world about how difficult this paper was, and that it carried, I don't know if it was over 40 marks or 45 marks, I'm not so sure exactly, but there were a lot of marks that were allocated to the question on databases, and many students felt that they did not cover this enough in class, and boom, they find databases in the exam. So I'll try as much as possible, and pardon me, this video is going to be very long just trying to explain this. I really want you to get the concept, because there are not many papers out there. I was just sharing this with my students in my school. I was saying there are not many papers out there from Cambridge which have to do with databases. So the few that we have, we really have to work around them and explain and enforce some of the concepts that may be required for you to answer even other questions on databases. Because if we just rush and answer the question paper, I mean, what would we have accomplished? It's as good as looking through the mark scheme. You see that what I'm saying? But we can take advantage of this time and just spend this as if it's a lesson, and work around some of the topics and the concepts that are important, so that you guys go into the exam. If you find databases, you will really know how to handle them. Okay. So I do apologize if I would spend a little bit more time doing this paper than usual. Just bear in mind that not many schools and not many students have really had the opportunity to cover databases intensively, and it is really a pain, and they are dreading, this exam that they're just about to write. Okay, good. All right, so let's proceed with the question paper. So the files need to be merged together so they can use to develop a database. Evaluate using less than 100 words the suitability of these data files for this purpose. What is the purpose? The purpose is to merge the files so that we can develop a database. So again, if you are going to answer this question, then you have to come back to the requirements that you have given you for this database. What are the requirements? The requirements are these that you were given earlier on. I'll change them the color so that you really know. These are the requirements that you were told. First of all, they have told us that the field names must be short. They must be meaningful. In other words, they must be descriptive. They should give us an idea about what data each column is holding. That's what meaningful means. And then they must be consistent in style. In other words, we shouldn't have like one column is called age, the other column is called this or what. We should have one column holding the same data type and having a meaningful name. Okay, and we've been told us an idea about these meaningful names, that they should not be separated by spaces or underscores. So which means we're going to use the camel notation to represent the text in the field names. Okay, so we're performing an evaluation of that. So in your evidence document, you perhaps need to type that. Now, I started working on this video. I haven't done the video editing section for this video. I just just went straight to the database section, because this is really a pain. And so perhaps let's scroll up and see what we should do with our evidence document, since we would need it. Okay. So create a new document called evidence, followed by your candidate numbers, like that. And we'll place our name, center number, candidate number in the header of this document, and we'll save this document. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a blank new document. And in this document, we will save this, insert first of all in our header our details. So Chikasa Evans, and we'll say ZM556, and we'll go 0001, and then we'll save this as So save as F12 on your keyboard, save as, and then let's go with evidence and then 0001. I'll save it as a Word document and it must be saved in my work area. So let me just browse to my work area. Tutorials, SIT, June paper 2, work files, and we'll save it in here. Okay, so there is our evidence, and I'm going straight just to paste the statement there. So that will be evidence number for the question that we're doing. That would be evidence number 5. So we were supposed to evaluate using not using less than 100 words the suitability of these data files for this purpose. So again, guys, the key word here is evaluate. Oftentimes students don't understand what evaluate means, and so they tend to write stuff that don't even relate to what the question is asking them to do. It's very important that you understand the key terms, the key words that have been used for questioning. That will give you an idea and the level of detail that you're supposed to give as you present your answers. So in this case, evaluate then is asking you to determine the pros and the cons, and perhaps if there are adjustments that you have noticed that can be made, changes that can be made to make something more efficient and stuff like that. And there are also cases where you may be biased towards something and recommend and say, well, because of this and such reasons as this is a better solution than this solution. Okay, so you are basically looking at two sides of the coin, and you are balancing your arguments. Okay, so if you're evaluating something, you're basically looking at what's good about it, what's not good about it, and is there anything that can be changed about that to make it perhaps a better thing. Okay, so you are looking at both sides like that. Okay, so let's perform an evaluation on this. Already we talked about quite a number of things when we were listing here. We talked about the inconsistency in the column A and B. The surname and the forename have been switched. So that is one of the things that we can put down in our list, in our evaluation. Also, we can talk about column C. The column names are different, and the data types are different as well, so that can be a conflict. We can talk about the space that we have, the empty row that we have actually in this second file. Row 2 is empty. Again, that is going to cause some conflict of interest. We can also talk about some positives that we have. So, for example, if you talk about from column D to column J, this data is consistent. The field names are okay, not the field names, but the naming is consistent. The data types are consistent. We may, of course, shoot down the length of the names. Some names are longer, like employment, place of employment, address of employment. These are long names. You don't want to use this in a database. Okay. So these are some of the things, guys, that you can talk about there. The other thing maybe that you can mention is that these two files, we both managed to open them in a spreadsheet. So these are simple, I would say, files, and it will be easy to merge these files once we get rid of some of the inconsistencies that we have there. Okay, so you can go ahead and type this stuff. I don't know if you have to type it, but just for the sake of saving time, you guys, I hope you're taking down some of the notes that I was saying. I won't type this stuff here just for the sake of saving time. Okay, so let's go straight into the next part. So we are here. So now step number 16 says manipulated merge two files examined in step 15. Now the key term again is manipulate. So in other words, do what is necessary for you to be able to merge these files together. Okay, so you have to figure out, you already know what is wrong with these files. So can you adjust these files actually to be able to allow you to merge the files? Okay. And then also you're talking about merging the file, so which means you're bringing the contents of the other file into the other file. And also there's another thing, examine the venue type data and use this to create the venue. Okay, so we'll do this later on. But first of all, let's start with merging the files. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get this data that is here, Okay, just from second column, so that I don't have to delete this. Okay, so I'll just pick it up from here, copy all this content that I have here. I don't even need the other data, just copy this content from here and copy it. But you have to be very careful when you do this. You can just go ahead and paste it in the other file, because the surname and the forename are two different things. So you don't want to do that. So what you can do right from this file, first of all, you can work on the surname and the forename. So what you do is just get this column here. Let's just escape here. Get this column, cut it, and click on the second column. Let's say click on the third column and then say insert cut cells. Okay, and you'll see that now we have the forename and we have the surname. Okay, so this is perfectly fine. We have not been told whether the surname should be the one which is first or the forename should be the one which is first, but just switch one of the two files and then get the contents in the other file. So now we can get the contents and paste it in the second file. So just get this, copy it, and let's go ahead and paste it in this other file. So we have forename and here, and now just at the end here, I'll paste it just like that. And notice that we have the names in the correct order, but notice what has happened to the date. So the age column apparently seems to have some dates in there. So that's an issue again. So you don't want your data types to be like that. So they will need to do some stuff. So if you read the next part of the question, actually tells you that the age and the date of birth of the employee must not be in the database. So before you even read this, if you actually read the entire question here, it will save you even time. You know that we don't need the date. So I'll just come here and delete the date and the age. I don't need these. So that's the thing. The next thing that we will need to do is to perform naming of these field names so that they are short, meaningful, and consistent in style, and no spaces in between. So let's come here. Let's name them. So this one is fine, but here we don't need this. We use the camel notation. So the camel notation is where you capitalize the start of each new word, and so it creates like a hump from the small letter of the last word of the small letter in the last, what can I say? The last letter in a word is small letter, so the first letter in another word should be capital letter. So it creates sort of a hump of a camel, and that's why it's called the camel notation. So place of employment, this one we can call it just like place or something, or we can call it location if you want. Well, let's just call it place. And then address of employment. Notice that we've got two addresses, so we'll just call this one as first address or address 1, and then this other one, no spaces, address 1, or this one can be address 2. Remember, no spaces. Venue type, so let's just make it shorter. Type, we'll change it to type like this. Using the camel notation, and code, we'll change it to code like this, and venue type code. So venue type code, I don't know, it's quite a long name, so let's just change it to type code maybe, or something like that. We'll know it is referring to the venue, so that should be fine as well. Okay, good. And we have our names shortened, and there is consistency, and we have no spaces or underscores in between the field names. Okay, good. So we are here. We've merged the two files. We've changed the namings from there. And you don't have to change the field, the font sizes here so that they are like 12 points high. No, you don't have to do that. You do that in the reports when you produce the reports. Okay. So for now, we will just go straight into this part. Examine the venue type data, and use this to create the venue type code for each employee using when it's H, when it's hotel, we'll use H. When it's restaurant, we use R. When it's ski school, we use S. Okay. So let's go ahead and do just that. I have got too many windows open. Sometimes I even get distracted which window to open. So here, this is what we're going to do. So when it's K school, we can extract only this. When it is S, when it is restaurant, R, when it's H, extract hotel. Um, so there are two ways that you can do this. You can use a conditional statement to test whether it is equivalent to this, or you can use the function left. Okay, so in this case, I'll just use left since there are only the three of them and we just want the first letter. So that's fine. So I'll just say left and then specify that, and you'll be able to get the type code like that. Now, somebody may argue that if we did have, in fact, two venue types which started with the same letter S, what would be the type code? Of course, it will cause conflict because then both of them would be called S. But in the question, for this is an exception for this question, we've only been given three venue types, and each one is distinct from the other. So in this case, you can use the left function. But if it was in the case where you had multiple things, then you'd rather use a conditional statement and specify the character or the code that you'd like to use for the type code. Okay. So in this case, this is fine, and you can go ahead and replicate this for all the venues. So you notice that this is S throughout R, and you've got H and so on. Okay, that should be perfectly fine. And then we'll need to save the file in comma separated format, and with the file name employees followed by your candidate number, for example, employees, this one. Now, I must say here, guys, that you need to be very careful when you save files in CSV format. I have seen students who've messed up, especially if they're dealing with spreadsheets. You really need to be careful saving files in CSV, because what CSV does is that it truncates, or it deals away with the complex parts of the spreadsheet and only retains the basic formattings for that spreadsheet. So things like formulas, you're going to lose critical formulas in your spreadsheet if you saved it as a CSV, especially if in the exam you are doing a spreadsheet section. You really need to be careful. Unless the question tells you to save the file as a CSV file or comma separated value, then don't save it as a CSV file. Save it as a spreadsheet. You will be safe. Okay. Usually examiners, some of the problems that they face is that they would want to mark a student's formula. They say show the formula. They go to a spreadsheet. They find values in your column doesn't have a formula. I'll show you in a moment what I mean. Notice that we have a formula here, left this and so on. But if we save this file as CSV, then it will cease to have this formula in column I. So let's go ahead and save this file as we are talking about it. Okay, so we'll save it as CSV file, and we'll change the name. The name is supposed to be employee, and let's just verify the name, employees, and then our candidate number at the end, employees 00001, and save it. Okay, and accept. Okay, so notice we still have the names here. You may think your formula is there, but the moment you close this file, save it, yes, and then come back and open the same file, and let's try to go to the column. Notice that type code now doesn't have the formula. And so imagine the examiner wanted to know which formula you used here. They click there, they don't see any of your formulas. And you've just lost yourself a mark, because the examiner will think this guy was just going there. Well, if it's skill score, it's S. If it's skill score, it's S. If it's skill score, it's S. And you were just doing replication. Skill, and you did, oh, yes, yes, yes. And then this guy must be tricking us. So don't do that. So be careful when you save files in CSV and Excel file format. This is very critical. If a formula is required for the file that you're working on, better save that file in spreadsheet format, okay, or Excel format. And if the formula, like in this case, the formula is not required because you just need the type code. And this is why the left function, whether you use left or you used if statement, doesn't matter as long as it was able to give you the and generate the correct symbols for you. Okay, good. So yeah, so now this is where it gets interesting. And I'm gonna pause this video here and we're gonna continue with step number 17 because it's a whole new topic on normalization. And I would like just to spend some time and explain this as simple as possible. I would really love to make it as simple as possible so you guys can really understand. And then if you're a teacher and you're watching me, solve this paper, it's good to learn from one another as teachers as well. These are concepts that I will be explaining that you can use in the exam. Well, not necessarily in the exam, but as if you're writing an exam. These are concepts that you can use in your classrooms to reinforce the concept of normalization in your classes with your students. So I'll try as much as possible, to just break it down, and perhaps this video can go viral and be used in classes, by teachers. I like to just explain to students what normalization is and how we can apply normalization to databases. Okay, good. All right, so thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you shortly in the next video when we look at step number 17.